What is going on, Comic Fam? It's your boy, the Bearded Comic Bro, and I am joined by comic creators David and Cody. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having
Yeah,
us.
thanks for having us.
So excited to talk to you both. We ran into each other at I want to say Buckeye Comic Con. Some was that in the winter?
Yes, I believe so. Yes.
Okay. Small Comic Con here in Columbus, Ohio, and you guys were one of the few like just comic creators there in the midst of all of these comic book sellers. And so when I saw your table, I was like, I gotta check this out. You guys had a really cool display, and you guys are
Thank you.
hyping up your comic series, The Warden,
Yep.
which we're gonna jump into here in just a second. You got a Kickstarter coming out that's live. That's gonna be your fourth issue of this.
hmm
But I always like to know before I bring on guests. Have you always loved comics, or did this kind of come later in life for you?
Yep. Well, I can go first. My dad made sure that all me and my brothers were raised nerds. So we had that kind of stuff. So we grew up with superheroes and Star Wars, Star Trek, a lot of Godzilla stuff. So it was always a lot of nerd stuff in my life. And really got into comics because of the Hulk, actually, because I liked monsters when I was a kid. So the monsters superhero kind of led me into comics. And my first comic I ever read was the World War Hulk because I remember kids would always argue about who's the strongest. So I was like, oh, let me buy this comic book about showing the Hulk beat up everybody, and then read it. And I was like, wow, these things are cool. So I kept buying them, asking for Christmas and birthdays and whatnot. And we got into comics. And then I started writing them during COVID, actually, while I was in high school, because I know there was a lot of just downtime with school and everything like that. And also, I felt that like there's not a lot of good stuff being made around that time. And I was kind of being disappointed by a lot of stuff out there. So I can't, let me try it myself and see how it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I was pretty satisfied as a kid with whatever movie or show or video game I was playing. So I was like, okay, that's fine. I'm pretty satisfied. I don't need comics. But then I started watching The Walking Dead around high school time, and people told me the comics are so different. I was like, oh, okay, there's an incentive. So then I started with The Walking Dead, Robert Kirkman's writing, and I really was invested in a lot of the indie stuff because like, whoa, you can't watch a movie of this because anytime there was something cool, I was like, oh, I'll just watch the movie, whatever. But that's what got me invested was the indie stuff, and now we're writing indie comics. So it's been kind of that was my entry point into other comics as well, such as DC, Marvel,
Yeah.
etc. And David and I have probably I think our love for comics has increased as we started writing.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did this partnership come about? I know, David, you said earlier that, you kind of got into writing when, the comic market was kind of in a weird time during COVID, right? Like we
Mhm.
didn't know if we were going to get comic books or when we were going to, have those. And you were kind of feeling a little disappointment. So, when did this collaboration to say, okay, let's work on this comic together happen?
Yep. So basically, the company was originally founded as a sole proprietorship by just me, and around that same time, I became friends with Cody, and his dad actually is an entrepreneur himself, so he helped me do all the business stuff, helped me get all registered and everything, with like the state and all that. And Cody was there when it happened, and he was like, and then we kind of like went from there. And then one time, actually, it's really cool is we met each other at a bonfire, and I wrote my first book, which was called Project Olympus, which was a very, very, I don't know, 15, 16-year-old type comic, just crazy action stuff and like all, just big muscles and guns and all that. And I remember I wrote that like a whole 10 issue series. And I kept Cody up till 3 a.m. telling him the entire plot. And then basically a few months later, he's like, you know what? I think there's definitely something to this. And he jumped right in and we became partners in the company.
Nice. And so the company is Ironclad Comics, correct?
Yes, it is. Yep.
Okay. So what was it about then wanting to start a company to launch, right? Like because it sounds like you had the company and then you said, hey, let's now add some titles. Where was rather than just making a comic book, why was it important for you both to have a kind of a company to back it?
The reason I think it's important that we had a company specifically was because David and I don't have just one, although the Warden is our flagship character, right? He's kind of our entry point or our genesis to our universe. He wasn't the only character we had. Actually, after Project Olympus had its not so great launch,
Yeah.
we reframed all of Ironclad Comics. And David and I spent about 2 years building out 40 plus books that are all in a current timeline that we have. Is we call it like our our one path, right? Our one timeline. And on our website, you can see a little bit of it already. We don't want to give it all away, but it's something we built and we keep it as a, specific canon. So us owning our own company makes it so we have complete creative freedom. We know exactly what we can do. We can release the things we want when we want them. There's no one that we have to answer to. I mean, that's kind of the simple answer.
Yeah. We both got business degrees actually from college to run this company effectively. We were like, well, it's going to be hard to convince somebody to invest in a company by, I'm 22 and Cody's 24. And at the time, like years ago, like 3 years ago, we were, 90, we was a lot, very young. So like, we need to have a well-founded company built before we even start selling anything, because then you know that we have some longevity to us. We have a plan, a business plan, a marketing plan, all the stuff in the background already done, this whole entire universe built out. I mean, we already had the ending already in mind of our universe. And we have actually the plan so far is 15 years. So we built a 15-year plan for our entire company already. And we thought, we have to have all this background work in order to convince somebody to actually hop on this thing, because we're not going to come at you being with the quality or I guess the power or resources of Marvel or DC. So we got to hit you with like the preparedness and the stuff like that.
Yeah, which is so cool. So let's talk about your flagship, right? We mentioned you got the Kickstarter for the Warden, issue number 4. If someone is hearing this, interview, watching this on YouTube or, Spotify, where they're getting their interviews and stuff, and they are hearing about the Warden for the first time, what's your elevator pitch?
Sure. Yeah. So the Warden is about a prison guard from Detroit in 2004 named Henry Hunt. He's born with extraordinary powers of a supernatural, mysterious origin. Basically, he makes himself a costume, starts fighting crime and saving people. But with that comes some consequences. So he's being pursued by a reporter, by the cops, and by a government organization trying to take him down and use him for an ulterior motive. We kind of describe him as being a grounded and grittier Superman, or of a kind of a supernatural Superman almost. We really like the street level Marvel and DC stuff, and I'm a big Superman fan. I was like, let's combine those two things together and make it more of a realistic character. He's not so much bench pressing planets, but yes, he has a super strength, a bulletproof skin, superhuman senses, but he's more of like a street level brawler vigilante type instead of being, the cosmic, all that kind of stuff going on. And for him, me and Cody are big fans of classical literature and mythology and stuff. So a lot of our books are inspired by that. So the Ward is not only inspired by Superman, he's also inspired by Hercules and Beowulf and Gilgamesh and stuff like that, like the classic heroic champion archetype throughout history, like Samson and stuff like that. And that's kind of what we wanted to build the Warden as, this kind of this epic hero that kind of starts everything off as this kind of symbol of hope and justice in our universe, basically.
Yeah. And where was this catalyst for this idea for the Warden? I know you kind of said like you have some love for the street like heroes. Like, when did you know, like, we got something here, let's flesh this out and see what we can do with it?
Yeah, so it was a very interesting time. I used to be a kid who's like, I like the strongest, I like the Hulk punching through time and ripping open black holes and stuff like that. But like as I grew older, I was like, I like stories where there's more of a struggle involved, there's more of like a realistic stakes and stuff. And so me and Cody have both we kind of went towards a happy medium. He was kind of on the side of things being more grounded, and I was kind of on the opposite side. And we kind of met in the middle. And a lot of the inspiration for that was actually classic monsters like Frankenstein and Dracula, and the Wolfman and stuff like that. We love those old movies, and wouldn't it be great if we made superheroes that would fit in that world? And that's kind of one of our inspirations. So for our superheroes, or our vigilantes, what we want to call them, they are kind of a mixture of these supernatural aspects with the classic superhero aspects as well. So the Warden, for instance, his powers can be explained somewhat scientifically, but there's the extent of which has to have a supernatural or a divine element to them. So like one of the biggest aspects of our universe is there's 2 types of superhumans. There are those who are born with their abilities, kind of like this divine spark that is kind of bestowed upon them, like a supernatural mutant almost. And there's those who obtain their abilities through evil and corruption and this vice, and then become more bestial-like, which explains how we can put vampires and werewolves in this at the same time having a character like the Warden exists, and it all makes sense and have a nice marriage between the two.
Yeah. So Cody, David, what's it like for you both, coming into this, as co-writers, and, kind of how does that process work for you both as figuring out, as you're writing these issues?
Yeah, we each have different projects that we'll take lead on, and there'll be different titles that David has more of the creative. And usually, actually, whoever's the creator of whatever that title is, usually is going to take the lead on the
Mhm.
writing of it. But we say there's a nice like kind of Pareto distribution. So there's an 80-20 split, right? So like David's got, for example, the Warden is David's creation. So about 80% of that is all David's writing, and the 20% of it's mine. And the next book to come out, if you look at our website, it's going to be Devil's Tongue, which was my creation, which is going to be about 80% of my writing and then 20% of David's. So, and we usually work on those projects simultaneously. So we're going back and forth. So there's not a single time where one of us is just writing, the other one's kind of sitting back. We're both spitting ideas back and forth as we build that world cohesively together.
Yeah, and one of the beautiful things about having a partnership is that we can write our story and then sit down and rip them apart. The other person just tears them apart and make them actually good, because like a lot of the issue was, and it was a kind of funny thing about Star Wars, is that with the prequels, the reason why they weren't as good as the original is because George Lucas didn't bounce them off his wife, and all that took, all that drop in quality was so drastic, but just because he kind of was in like an echo chamber of himself. So for me and Cody, we sit down, we go through several different editing and reviewing stages, and like he rips it apart, or I'll rip his story apart. Like, this doesn't make sense. This is a plot hole. This is terrible. How can we do this better? And we kind of fix that, and that's kind of where that 20% comes from, where it's kind of like we help each other bounce ideas off of each other and really make the best product we possibly can.
So it almost works as like an editorial role, that 20% of kind of like how can we expand on this? Is it your relationship with each other, like your friendship, that allows you to have this, like, like, or do you just naturally built with a tough skin to be like, being comfortable to say, hey, this is not good right now, we need to fix this, like, because I mean it still is your creations, your baby. So how do you guys kind of handle those critiques with each other?
I think it's a bit of both. I think there's a lot of humility that has to be involved
Mhm.
whenever we're talking about it, because if you genuinely want it to be good, which David and I both want it to be good, we have to be honest with one another. And I think the other part of it is the friendship. I know David's not going to, be envious of my project and want to rip it down just so his is better. So there is a bond between our friendship that was built over 5 years of basically being
Mhm.
roommates, making all these ideas together and living a large chunk of our life together that was built up, and so there's a bond there as well.
Yeah, and the thing is too is that everything's in a combined universe and timeline. Everything's in the same place basically. So like if we have a weak link there, then it hurts everything else.
Mhm.
So we're just like, we gotta make this whole thing consistent across the board, kind of like how the DC animated series are with like the Batman, Superman, and Justice League cartoons. It's equal across the whole board in our opinion. And we're like, so we gotta do something similar. We have to like, so I mean, it'd be hurting us if we didn't really tear each other's stuff apart, or hurting the other person, because like the Warden would be hurt by a bad story from Cody, or the Devil's would be hurt a bad story would be hurt by a bad story by me. Like we have to make the best possible thing in order to make this universe kind of an equivalent thing, a level playing field, I guess you could say.
Yeah. So I got a copy of The Warden right here. Picked it up. I loved it. I love just the look of this book. So how do you guys come about with your creative teams, right? As you guys are the writers, how do you bring on the best? Because you sound very passionate about your project, that you want these projects to sing and, like, excel at it. So how do you come about forming the teams to make these books?
Yeah. So basically, we think we're like we think we were born with a natural ability to write good stories, but we were not born with the ability to draw them. So we are like, we got to find the best possible artist to match our skill, basically, and not just the penciler and inker, but also the colorist and the letterer. So what we did was we found people's on Instagram and social media, like these people's styles match us,
Mm.
and they are good quality. We like our artist Matt. He's great. Like, he's super passionate. He's super hardworking. He's super good, and he's super quick too. And all of our artists are just really, really good and very complementary to each other. So like one of the things we do is we make sure when we have a project going, we have monthly meetings with them. Like, okay, how are things going with you? What do you need from us? We have actually one of the things that they love is like we have the colorist, the letterer, and the penciler and inker speaking to each other in the same meeting. So it's like, oh, let's fix let's see what we can do here and kind of bounce things off each other instead of just like at being in a vacuum and not talking to each other. So that's one of the things we try to do is kind of have this team where everybody's equally like built to make the best product possible.
Mm. Yes, I dig that. So this Kickstarter, you're on issue 4. what can people expect from this Kickstarter if they've never gotten a chance to, dig into this universe? Are there going to be catch up tiers? Are there, how can people kind of hop in on this book? Because I'm hoping people listen to this interview go, I want to check this out. So
Yeah. I can go through the kind of channels that David and I have chosen
yeah,
from Ironclad Comics to reach out to anybody that's interested. So for the Kickstarter specifically, there's definitely going to be catch-up tiers. Our main thing we want to sell is a cohesive story. So we would hate somebody to lose out on something because of an exclusive thing. We understand the appeal, but that's not what Ironclad Comics is about. We want to make it pretty simple, streamlined, easy way for somebody that wants to get into independent comics to know exactly how to get in. And some of the ways we do that, like you were saying with the Kickstarter, we have those catch-up tiers, and we always will. That way, there's not going to be a Kickstarter where it's like, oh, I can only get issue 3 and 4. No, you're going to be able to get the full story if that's what you're looking for. As for the other portions of it, on our website, we're always going to be shipping internationally. So you can buy those at any time for the same retail price. And that will ship out, obviously, if you buy it from the Kickstarter, you're going to get it first. That's the advantage. And you get all the extra goodies like the bonuses and the stretch goals and so forth. On top of that, the other way we kind of like to streamline it is that timeline we referenced already, which will have each book in order so that when you read the first one and say we're on Devil's Tongue, say 2 years have passed, and you're like, oh goodness, I want to read this next one. Or you jumped on Devil's Tongue and like, whoa, the Warden actually was first. So you can just jump back, click on that link and buy the next one and we'll ship it out. That way you can actually jump in and be cohesive with us.
Yeah, a lot of people who will do Kickstarters or who do comics themselves don't really have a long or sustainable goal in mind. It's like, oh, I like this. This is cool. I want to make a book about it, and maybe there'll be another one. Maybe there won't. Maybe I won't finish it or something like that. It's really just like we need to basically create a model in which we have some longevity and sustainability,
right.
And so we offer everything from the past and the future going forward. So you can rely on us to give you something instead of just being just like artists with a cool idea. We're actually trying to build an entire company with reliable products here.
Yeah. And I've been looking off to the side because I wanted to pull up your website to just see, which is awesome because you have all the stuff that they can get, right? Like you have your comics and things like this. Every time you on these issues, at the end, you guys mentioned, I think at the back of your, towards the end, you say like in your letter that this is 1/6 of a 194-page graphic novel. Like, how is that something that you imagine are you going to collect, in one piece? Are you going to do them in trades? Like, what's the process for that for you or vision?
Basically, our model is built out that will have issues for the book, and then once all those issues are done, we'll collect into a graphic novel. And that's kind of how we're going to structure every single thing we have. So as we grow, we're going to have more and more issues coming out, and we'll probably have a maximum of 30 issues or 30 to 35 issues a year. Which means about 5 graphic novels a year, and that's kind of how our structure be. And the whole thing is we like binging stuff, so we want to be able to binge not only movies and shows or whatever, but also the books we're reading. So right. We personally love trades. Honestly, we don't buy things unless they are trades. So we're trying to make our company be able to be very pro collections and pro omnibuses and pro graphic novel.
We want it to look like your background.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Which I love. But I also do as a collector, I love that you're introducing it though still in single issues, right? Like as someone who goes to the shop on a Wednesday, like there is something about reading it in single issues, but also as someone who, goes to Comic Cons and goes to shows a lot and wants to check out a comic, but maybe doesn't want to invest $20 in a trade, but wants to pay the $5-6 for the single issues. I appreciate that then as a collector as well too. So kudos.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If people want to check out this world, obviously hop on the Kickstarter. But one of the things I remember that really stuck out to me when I met you both at your booth is your backdrop. You had a backdrop of probably 12 different characters. And it was so cool. So like, these are characters that I've read 3 issues of it and I haven't seen many of these characters. Mm-hmm. So like this is when you talk about the longevity that you are both hoping for this and and planning for this, like you guys aren't joking, like you have stuff created that I haven't even gotten to see yet.
Yep. We are written about 3 years in advance right now.
Okay.
When we write the entire story all the way through all the issues. So we'll sit down and write the whole entire script, and then we'll put it into production. And on our website, if you want to get a taste of the universe, we actually just released something called the Vault. And you can see it on our website. Is you click on that, we have that government organization I was alluding to in the description of the Warden. It's called Division 13, and on our website, we have a database for them where you can read stuff written by the agents. So right now, if you go over there, you can see all the Warden stuff is unlocked, like his psychological profile, a profile written from an agent's perspective, a biological profile. We also have tons of other things written as well, like for other characters that we're going to allude to with Devil's Tongue and stuff like that. So if you want more stuff in the meantime, that's how you get it. And on top of that, one of the things we're doing too is
I don't want to give away everything we're doing. But for those fans that we know that have looked at our backdrop and seen a bunch of these cool characters, we're currently working on something, a way that we can give people early tastes of these characters without having to wait 2-3 years out. And we're also working on free content as well, such as we have a free 8-page digital comic that'll be sent out to the emails very shortly. It just got finished up by the cover artist of issue 1 of The Warden. So we have ways we want them to jump in for free, and get taste of some other things. We don't want to give away all of our secrets yet, but the Vault is definitely the best way to jump in if you want a free way to dip your feet in,
Yeah. And it's cool. Like I'm looking at you have the file folders and I'm like, man, I just want to dig into all of this and find out what's going on. So you mentioned and I see it on your website too, like you have an email list. What can people expect from like content that you guys send out and weekly, how regularly is that done?
Yep. So right now, we do like a monthly email. That's kind of our goal. And one of the things they can expect is those free email comics. So people who are on our email list will receive those comics for free just by signing up to it. So that the 8-pager will be there for them, just for signing up for our email list and being a member of our company, basically.
And to explain what one of those 8-page free comics are, it's usually us working with a comic artist we've been looking at admiring for a long time, and we've really wanted to do something with them. And so we made a special script that's completely separate from anything else. So it's an exclusive story, and it's a good way you guys our fans can get something fun for free, and it be unique.
Yep, you can get like a full little short story, and it's like, wow, this is great. Let me buy the issues now. That's kind of what the purpose of them are.
Nice. One of the things then too that Cody, you mentioned, you're working on another story here. And you mentioned they connect. How much of it though if someone's like, I just want to invest in the Warden, like, and versus, your story that you're working on, how much can people like separate from like, I don't want to read this, or I do want to read this, or I can enjoy this without knowing this?
Actually, that is one thing we really wanted to target on when we made Ironclad Comics. Every story, we wanted to be its own story. So if you pick up Devil's Tongue, let's say the full 7 issues of Devil's Tongue, which would be our second book, is out. If you bought that trade, you wouldn't have to read extra stuff to get invested. Now, if there are stories that have crossovers, we'll put those in the description on the timeline. But for the most part, I would say about 85% of all of our books, besides, sequels, you'll be able to pick up and get the full story. That way, you're not running around trying to figure out some random continuity. You can pick up the book of the character you want and read the full story and be satisfied.
Yeah, one of the analogies we use is kind of how Blade Runner and Alien are connected to each other, but you wouldn't almost be able to tell just by watching them separately. So there may be the similar rules. So like our universe has similar rules. We follow the same thing all the way through, but they're very loosely connected just by the way that they're being in the same universe.
Gotcha. I love it. Well, David, Cody, I want to respect both your time. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you wanted to mention about the books, your company, the Kickstarter?
Yeah, so I would just say for a vision of our company, just get a good understanding of it. What our goal is to kind of create a new myth of the 21st century. So kind of how Marvel and DC were the 20th century's myth, kind of like the Greek myth or Norse myth. They were kind of the 21st century's America myth, right? So we want to be that for the 21st century. So we're trying to really build something with some substance and some meaning behind it, rather than just making something that's cool or fun, let's say. We will have that. will have the quality, but it's also meant for something greater than that, something you actually sit and read and actually be impacted by. Because we're not writing things just to write them. We're writing things that have some meaning behind them and actually give something people to have like new role models, or like, especially for like teenagers and stuff, like role models they can invest in, and people look at these heroes and all of our characters like, wow, these guys are relatable. I kind of want to strive to be better myself. Like they're going through these characters are going through tough stuff. This some like epic stuff, and I'd be able to like feel myself within them, and that's kind of what we want to build, is that kind of new mythology for the 21st century, inspired by the things of the past.
Yeah, I love it. And gang, I'm telling you what, you want to check out this Kickstarter. I've gotten to check out the first 3 issues, and one of the things I appreciated about, when I first read the issue back when I first met you guys and picked it up, of issue 1 was, you can see that that there's a thought behind the comic, right? Because we don't even get to see really the Warden in Warden gear really at all, right at the beginning. It's a very slow, and I don't mean that like in a bad way. Like, it's a slow build because you want to kind of invest in these characters and kind of see this, and you can see the time that you're taking, that it's really thought out. That I said again, kudos to that. So,
well, thank you, appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Cody, David, where can people follow along and stay up to date with Ironclad, and then what you both are working on?
I would say go sign up on the email chain so you can get the free comic, because honestly, who doesn't want a free comic? Also, keep you up to date when anything comes out, and our website's where we want to pull people to. The other thing is we're on basically every social media. I can't think of anyone we're not on. But I think that, if you sink your teeth into the website, it's where we're going to be investing the most time, the most content. That or our Discord are the best ways to keep up.
Yep. So that'd be ironcladcomics.net is our website.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you mentioned Discord. Is there, how can people hop on and join the Discord?
Go ahead and press the connect button on the website, the far right end, and then hit that Discord link and you can join right there.
Yep.
Perfect. Awesome. I love that comic communities are using Discord more now, and I've fallen into a handful of those, and I think that's a cool way to then interact with your fans and interact and have these kind of conversations with the comics people that are reading your stuff. So I'm looking forward to checking that out as well. So
thank you.
Kickstarter, we mentioned already. At the time this video drops, it is live, so the link will be in the description of this video, and it will be also in the description of wherever you get your podcast. Is there anything, we mentioned some of the tiers and things, is there anything special about the Kickstarter that you like, this would be that I think you should check out? This is something really cool that you've got for it.
Yep. So we always like to include immersive content with our stories and Kickstarters. So, for instance, on our first Kickstarter, we offered a newspaper that was written by the reporter in the story. And the second Kickstarter, we offered a file written by the agent in the story. In this next Kickstarter, we will have things like that. I'm not going to say what they are yet.
Okay.
We're going to have things like that where you'll be able to, like, wow, be a part of this universe, kind of feel yourself inside of it.
That's my favorite part of it too, just getting the actual physical things that you could see within the story.
Yep.
That's always fun.
And it almost kind of brings you in a whole nother level to, you can experience the comic without it, but it just adds a little bit, like, it's extra little gravy on it, right? Like it's a little extra. I love it. So, gang, go check out the Warden issue 4 on Kickstarter now. Go check out Ironclad Comics. Links to that website will also be in the description of this video. Cody, David, thanks so much just for taking some time to talk about comics with me.
Thanks for talking with us.
Thank you.
With that being said, gang, hopefully you can find some time to curl up, grab a book, and nerd out.